Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I'm super excited for this conversation. Now, before we dive in, could you introduce Mudwater for listeners who aren't familiar?
Sure, Mudwater is a coffee alternative. It has a masala chai base, and we've added four adaptogens to it. So cordyceps, lion's mane, reishi, and chaga. We've added some cacao, cinnamon, turmeric, and sea salt. It has 1/7 the caffeine of a regular cup of coffee. So a lot of our customers enjoy it. And when they're trying to either get off coffee or have it as their second cup of the day, or they want to reclaim sleep.
Reclaiming sleep is
Yeah,
an ambition I think a lot of people have or should have,
yeah, it's hard.
and it impacts
So hard.
everything.
Oh man, I would drink 5 cups a day of coffee, and I loved it.
Wow.
And I would set my alarm for 4 a.m. and every day, and I looked forward to coffee. And I never thought in a million years that I would ever get off coffee. And I thought I was fine. And I did have a routine, but I didn't realize how much even 1 cup of coffee impacted my sleep. So it was really incredible to watch my sleep scores from before and after coffee. And a really interesting data point that we found, I think we're going to add some more marketing around it, but there's a variant of a gene that we all have called the CYP1A2 gene, and it determines how quickly you metabolize coffee. And about half of the population metabolizes it twice as slow. So you might be
Mm,
incredibly sensitive to caffeine and not know it from a gene variant.
that's so interesting.
Mhm.
I'm curious, do you know, is that a variant that you can find out if you have from something like 23andMe?
I've got to write that down. Such a great question. Let me chase that down. We'll get it back to your
Okay,
listeners. That's such a
we'll
great
include
question.
that in the show notes.
Yeah, we
Now,
got to
on the
do that.
website of Mudwater, it says that you create products and experiences to optimize one's mind, body, and ritual. And I love that you expressly call out ritual. I
Mhm.
feel like there's so much power in ritual as well as a lot of comfort. And it's interesting when you take a step back how many rituals revolve around food or specifically drinks.
Mhm.
So you think about tea time in Great Britain, or sharing a cup of coffee with a new friend, or I was just in Sweden last month and they have their fika breaks, I think I'm saying that right, throughout the day, which all are centered around a hot drink.
Mhm.
However, I think the importance of ritual often isn't expressly recognized with companies and the space that it creates for connection with other human beings or just for centering with oneself. And so I appreciate how Mudwater expressly calls out fitting into someone's daily ritual and their intentional practice and being more intentional about that instead of, as you said, having maybe the 5 cups of coffee to keep going, which might have other side effects along with it.
Yeah, we the ritual nature of how we look at product development and kind of look at our customers is so important. Um, that morning ritual is something that's on autopilot for a lot of people, and so when you're trying to kind of like recruit customers that have been drinking coffee their whole lives and have that same exact morning ritual, you have to really think about what it is going to be that appeals to disrupting that ritual, but disrupting it in a good way. In other words, how do we get them to think that they can keep the great parts about that ritual, but maybe rethink one component of it? And so a lot of our copy, and I think ethos as a company and something that we celebrate is we would love for you to be a customer, but we don't care as much as if you just changed your mind on something, if you interacted with us and we made you think
Mm.
differently about something. And a lot of our early copy was around, hey, just we're just trying to shake up the snow globe, all the things that you're positive you need, like your coffee, and you've seen the shirts that say, but first coffee. We're just trying to make you think a little bit. Like, are you sure you really need that exact ritual? Are you sure it's the best thing for you? And if
Mm.
we can maintain a lot of the same great elements of a ritual, maybe add a little bit more functionality or a different taste or something that allows you to sleep more at night, then we're in a good spot. But yeah, ritual is such a critical component of our onboarding, of our customer experience, of how we enter the market. It's really important.
I really like the way you phrase that about the intention and ambition of, I guess, inviting consumers or potential consumers just to question the way they've been doing things and shaking up that snow globe. And I
Mm,
think oftentimes in life, we can find ourselves creating habits or rituals that we believe serve us, or maybe they did serve us at one point in time. But over the course of time, we've started serving them as
mm.
opposed to the other way around, and creating that space or perspective and inviting the question just to take a moment to consider what you're doing and if it's still serving you, I think is a good question to put out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's we get so ingrained, and we get in, sometimes we get in those positive, or not even positive, sometimes negative feedback loops, that where we've convinced ourselves like this is what I do, this is my identity, just because we've done the same things before. I think that one of the really exciting things at our company is our content arm we call trends with benefits, and the content's starting to get really exciting, and it's all around that. Are you just shifting a little bit into um, getting people to think like, is this really, am I really sure about this is the way to go, or might I think differently about something I was so sure about? We love the Mark Twain quote that's anytime you're on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. And so
Mm.
most of our content, and I think in excitement at the company, is this is starting to create like a groundswell of people looking at other things that they're doing all the time, and asking deeper questions. And do I really need this, or is there a better way to do it? And so, yeah, it's a very exciting opportunity for us that came in on the back of this idea of like, can we get you to think differently about your morning ritual?
I love that. And I love the name Trends with Benefits.
Yeah,
That's brilliant.
yeah, yeah. It's fun. We like to have fun, and you don't want to be bland. Like it just doesn't work. So it's good to
Hmm.
be controversial every now and then.
Absolutely. And I like how you mentioned a few times the question of, is this something you really need?
Hmm.
And I think there is this idea that came to me the other month that just resurfaced again, so I'll share it. But it was the notion of like, when is enough enough? And in some aspects of life, it's obvious, like when you're eating. Enough is
Yeah.
enough when you're full. Like you, there's
Maybe
a
for you,
there's a
maybe for
sign,
you, I will keep going. I will keep going.
but there's some sort of indicator. But
Yeah.
so many other aspects of life, there isn't that indicator that's like, oh,
Mm.
you've reached enough. You made it. Good job. And so stopping to consider that, what does that look like? What does that mean? What does that feel like is important.
Um, we're very much influenced by Atomic Habits by James Clear. In fact, our new onboarding booklet, which we're really proud of, draws a lot of influence from that. And the thing, or what fascinated us there was, if you are receptive to change, like if you're very much convinced that what you're doing is the right thing, it's kind of hard to get you to think differently. But if you are receptive to change, what we loved about Atomic Habits is it's not about like the intensity of the shift that you're about to make. It's about repetitiveness and just doing that same routine a little bit each day. In other
Mm.
words, well, I think I'm a pretty good example of what shifted for me is if I didn't do a workout and go as hard as I could, and almost kill myself, or like I ate something, I'd get down on myself. I was like, oh, I didn't do it, and then I'd take a few days off because I was like, whatever, I'm back off my routine, and I did that for so long, and then that that book's influence is so important because what shifted for me was I can tell myself I'm just going to go do 5 minutes, And I've been able to keep that consistently, and it's made me healthier and
Mm.
allowed me to be like less intense on my own mistakes. And to your comment, like if you're going to shift anything, you just at least have to start with being receptive to it. And then maybe where I was going with that was such an impactful thing for us to learn on how you actually can shift something that's kind of taken hold in your life, that we included it in our onboarding materials now. So yeah, we're pretty excited and to deliver that to our customer base, because some of the challenges that they have are when mud is not around, they switch back to coffee, or they get back on coffee and they can't get off of it. So we very
Mm.
much deal with that every day.
That's so cool. And it is hard when you're struggling, or not struggling is the wrong word, when you're competing against a category that's inherently addictive.
Hmm.
That's a harder
Yeah, yeah.
battle to enter into, because not only does someone need to be open to changing their habit, their ritual, but also have the perseverance and the willpower to actually fight the coming off of an addiction
Hmm.
side
We
effects.
we this is like a lot of the this is right around like why I love my job. What I'm so interested in is we have a lot of customers that they just I myself too, when I'm out of town or overseas. I was in Europe recently, and I was like, I haven't had a coffee in so long. Tried it, and then it's 3 days later, and I've been drinking coffee, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I forgot, like this is really addictive. And so when you're trying to like supplant that, like you said, it's the most widely abused drug on the planet. When you're trying to supplant like something that has those kind of addictive properties, you do have to think about how can you make it exciting for a customer to approach this differently. And so we think about things like, how do we create your kitchen experience, or what are the products that can kind of make that ritual seem exciting for you, or worth your time. And one of those items for us was our USB frother. It might sound trivial, but there's something to a really fun element of making mud when you get your USB frother. There's a little work that goes into it. You can kind of screw it up if you don't get it right. But a lot of people just absolutely love that part of the ritual where it's not just
Mm.
hot water and stir. It's like, oh, I get to open this USB frother. It's really well made. I see it working. People ask me about it when I take it around, and then I can, clean it quickly and then store it, and it looks really sleek. And so, creating more experiences like the USB frother, like what we're doing with our booklet, or maybe a kettle that we'll come out with, or a mug. Those are all really important in making that potential shift seem exciting. Otherwise,
Mm.
it's really hard.
That's such a great point. And again, just adding to the whole ritual and experience of it, and making it more of a art than just
Mhm.
adding water to something.
Yeah.
Now, can you share how you met your co-founder, Shane Heath, and how you ended up creating this company?
Yeah. I wish I could sound a little better, but I saw Shane's portfolio on a website, and he was a designer at my last company. We needed to hire a designer, and um, he was just charging way less than he should. And so I was like, oh, this is a great deal. This guy should be charging way more. Let's get him in. And so he met me out in San Francisco. I talked to him. Oh, I'm sorry. I met him on a Skype call, and told him about the project we wanted and we were looking for. And it was complete redesign with this really involved database, customer interface. And he nodded his head a lot. And then a few hours later, I had a mock-up from him, and I messaged him. I was like, this is cool, man. It's along the lines, but you can't copy this from somewhere else. We need this to be organic, and like you have to create it yourself. And in my mind, I'm like, this guy's not the guy for the job. Like, he just went and pilfered something online. He's like, no, I just made that. And I was baffled. I didn't believe him, but he turned something around that was so complex in such a short period of time that it just blew me away. And then so we brought him on the team, and he started blowing other teammates away as well. He was such an incredible uh, thinker and designer, and he could like front end code. So he would just go, he would get a brilliant idea, and then he would code it, design it in like the most shortest time period you could ever imagine. And it was kind of unreal. And if you see him paint, it's kind of the same thing. Like he'll get all of an incredible painting done in a few hours. And so he just was this incredible talent, and we loved working with him. And we got to become friends. And unfortunately, like that company didn't work. We had to shut it down. But a lot of the values that we tried to espouse there were values that he had, and were values that he kind of always wanted at a company, which was being remote first, ability to travel, like a lot of independence, autonomy, and like just working with really great people. And I think we were so bummed that that company didn't work, because we were getting to be pretty good friends and we worked really well together. But that company just didn't pan out and get the venture returns that we were looking for. And so we are just kind of like hanging out, trying to think of new ideas to work on. And I would fly out to LA, and we would design a few things and like test it. It wasn't really working. And then one day a night after he took mushrooms, actually, at a concert, he just texted me the next morning, because he thought of the design for Mudwater, this drink he had been drinking the whole time, and this drink that he had been bringing in on our company trips to the last company. And it looked a lot like the site we had today. It was beautiful. It was like very succinct. Like he nailed the copy. And I just texted him back, I'm in, let's do this. How do I help? And so, yeah, that's kind of how we met, and then the story of how Mud began.
That's really cool.
Mhm.
Now, both Shane and you have openly discussed past experiences with anxiety, particularly as it
Mhm.
relates to the pressure of startup culture. And
Mhm.
in an article in Thrive Global, Shane said, be 100% 70% of the time. Building a company is an infinite game. All too often, we get caught up in arbitrary deadlines, which causes people to think small and burn out on small, relentless tasks. Being rested is when the ideas that change the business can be cultivated. We strive to empower our employees to have the capacity to see those ideas that may increase the business 10x by buying and tracking sleep through the Aura rings, tracking stress levels through 15/5, giving every other
Mhm.
Friday off, and enforcing no meeting Wednesdays. I love everything about this. I think it's really insightful thinking. If employees aren't taking care of themselves and their mental and physical health, they won't be able to bring their best self to work or any other aspect of their life. And unfortunately, this mentality isn't the norm across corporate leaders, which is why we have burnout rates like we never had
Mhm.
before. Now, were these elements to reduce anxiety and burnout within Mudwater there from the start? Or is that something that evolved over time?
Yeah, we evolved over time, and we're really proud of our like perks and benefits, and they're going to continue to evolve as we monitor how well they do at increasing employee happiness. And we kind of like, even happiness isn't like where we're going. We just like want our employees to absolutely thrive. And what we saw was we had unlimited vacation, and I was like, no one's taking any vacations. And then I started doing some research and found out why that doesn't work anymore. Like you act that unlimited vacation thing doesn't work because people don't take it. And it's more along the lines of what you're kind of referring to, is that um, it's now kind of like perceived that if I stay back and don't take a vacation, I can kind of improve or catch up, or move in front of the person who did take vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I think like when you have people that just go as hard as they can because they love that environment, you're going fast, it is on you as leaders, if you do have A players and go that fast, to be way more proactive with their time off, and doing things like giving them a flex Friday. And so, no, we didn't start with that, but it was very much like, hey, if you guys aren't taking vacations, like we're going to just kind of build them into the schedule. We still have limited vacation, but we're now moving into like almost like a forced vacation where like it's like we're just going to book something for you, or like you have to book it this quarter. And it's just something that you kind of have to do or think about as a leader now, that you do get so much return on your team, like when they can check out, when they can relax and
Mm-hmm.
rest, and they can feel. That is an important point. It's not just not being there, it's giving them the confidence that they're supposed to be there, and we really value that they're there, and they're not, no one's competing for their position while they're not there. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a big part of actually relaxing. You need to feel like your company loves that you're taking a break right now, and like confident that you'll come back refreshed with your best ideas yet.
I love how you explained that, and specifically how you said it's really important for leaders when they recognize that the their employees, their dedicated employees that they have, are going full speed, to
Hmm.
be proactive about making sure that they're taking time off,
Yeah.
and creating the culture where that happens, or setting up, as you said, forced vacations where they need to be unplugging. I think that in its that way of explaining it is looking at it from a completely different perspective, of saying that we are the leaders of this company. We know it's really important for the success of the company and for employees not to be burned out. We're not just going to leave it up to chance, or leave it up to consideration. This is
Yeah.
something that we embrace as a company as being important to our success.
Yeah, you almost have to track it as a KPI. Like, did you get enough of these days in this year?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's when you get A players that just love creating, and like they're getting positively reinforced by being a part of things they're creating, and you start seeing the traction. And it's sometimes it's hard to pull away because things are going well, and that's when you got to step in as well. So yeah, not by anybody's fault. They love what they do, and they're
Mm-hmm.
really excited to do it, and that they'll have a tendency to say, vacation doesn't seem as exciting to me right now, which is understandable sometimes, but you kind of have to get in before it's too late. And we didn't get that right for a while. We didn't get it right with Shane and I. We were going way too fast, and compromising like our sleep, and had this, I think, because we had a couple failures under our belt. It was like, okay, this one can't fail, and we were burning the candle at both ends, and we had to look in the mirror and just say, hey, we're not drinking our own Kool-Aid here, or our own mud here. And
Mm-hmm.
so we had to make changes too.
I think that's such a good point. And also, like, sometimes people don't want to pull away. You're
Hmm.
getting rewarded, you're doing the thing you love, but no matter what you're doing, whether it's work or vacation or anything else, there's diminishing returns at some point.
Hmm.
Um, and so you want to stop before you get to that. And the more something I feel like it took me a while to learn in my professional life is the more that you're able to spread out your creative energy across a couple different things, you almost get to cross pollinate things within yourself. And so if you're creating something at work, but then you're also exploring a new city and it's lighting up a creative side of your brain,
Hmm.
it gives space for new ideas to come in that wouldn't be there otherwise.
Yeah, there's like not an opportunity for neuroplasticity when it's the same rote
Yeah.
day to day, even if you're working on a creative problem where you're looking at like um, a really tough challenge every day that you have to think about. If you're still going to the same computer, if you're still going to the same um, office, it doesn't allow for that ability for kind of neuroplasticity to take place. I love traveling, and for me, I'll put on my headphones and I'll walk around a new city and just take in everything, and not have and don't want to think. I just don't want to make decisions. I want to walk around and see different things, different people, and try to learn a language. And that's my version of that kind of neuroplasticity taking place. Like that's the environment that has been helpful for me to like actually relax.
Mm.
Um, Otherwise, I find myself like sitting around and wondering when I'm going to go back to work, or having a few drinks or something, and that's not really me. So for me, like I absolutely need to go do that at least twice a year to reset and like be in a spot where I'm not making any decisions, where I'm letting my mind breathe and create those new neural pathways.
You said that so much more articulately than me.
I've been saying neuroplasticity a lot. It makes me sound smart, and so I just have some experience with it. That's why.
Have you read The Brain's Way of Healing?
No,
That book is all about I can't even
really,
say the word
neuroplasticity.
neuroplasticity. You say
Yeah, yeah. There,
it.
I do
It's
have.
pretty mind blowing. The book.
Is it
I'll put a link in the show notes.
that'd be awesome. We Shane and I both experiment with psychedelic therapy. Um, a lot of my just like absolute belief in mud when we started was because I was drinking 5 cups of coffee a day, and I had at the time I like couldn't get on top of my anxiety, and I was prescribed like a generic form of Prozac, and it I never thought like coffee was kind of contributing to the anxiety because I looked forward to it so much.
Mm.
But when I was on these meds, like my creativity was gone. Like I didn't have any like lows, but I just didn't feel like I was firing. It was just like felt like every day felt the same. And so I got off that, but anxiety didn't go away. And then I got off coffee, and it was doing so much better and than before. But I still had this like kind of gripping anxiety a lot of times, and there was a time where I couldn't get on top of it. So I enrolled in this like ketamine therapy, and the reason that ketamine therapy works so well is because of that neuroplasticity element. So um, you do actually generate new neural pathways when there's a new experience that you have, and why that works, or why ketamine works, is you're so used to your brain, your mind thinking the same exact way when you come to this whether it's an experience or whether it's a stimuli. Your brain is used to thinking and doing the same exact thing. When you are in a situation like with ketamine therapy, what happens is your mind goes to that spot again, but it creates new feelings around it, and so it gives you like a new way to react to that stimuli. So anyway, that's why I'm nerding out on neuroplasticity. I find it so fascinating, and ketamine guided therapy was like a pretty big game changer for me.
Thank you for sharing that. I did psychedelic therapy too, and to go back to an analogy that you used earlier with the snow globe, I think that's another way of describing what psychedelic therapy is able to do. So you have your grooves of your patterns of thinking, and for me, I did it for PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, psychedelic therapy has a way where instead of having grooves in a ski slope of the way your thought patterns are going all the time, it can shake up the snow globe and
Mm-hmm.
enable you to form different thought patterns or be able to process and look at a past experience different. So it's actually, if it is PTSD related, it's something that you metabolize as a memory instead of it staying in that traumatic realm where it
Mm-hmm.
pops up in very unexpected and unpleasant ways.
Yep. And we all have some version of trauma in our lives, even if we have
Hmm.
the most pristine upbringing. There's something that's unresolved, and I think what was so fascinating to me with that was how quickly my mind went to those places that I had forgot or didn't even think of. And
Mm.
to your point, yeah, like it creates these positive thoughts around it, and you're so used to being triggered or hearing something that looks like that past experience, and you get into a defense posture, or you lose your breath a little bit. And so yeah, it's a fascinating development in psychotherapy that I'm really excited about.
Me too. Now, that actually brings me to a question I had, which I think this somewhat answers it. So, Mudwater makes monthly donations to MAPS, which is the
Mhm.
Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. And I was going to ask you why this is something you decided to support.
Yeah, so Maps has been around for a while, and I think that's one of the that's a really important reason because Rick Doblin has been leading Maps for I think it's the late '80s, and he, that gave us um, that gives him like such like this like heroic vibe where we're it's becoming so much less controversial now, but there's still a stigma. But we loved what was happening there, where because they were actually able to make progress in these clinical trials, all just through donations and just through like their vision, and in a time when this was definitely like there was just so much stigma behind it that even the thought of talking about it was you're more of a criminal, you're more of a Schedule One narcotic than you are able to think
Mm-hmm.
about this in any sort of medicinal purpose. So the fact that they had been around for a while in an era where it was definitely not popular or as a lot, it's a little less controversial now. So the fact that they had been around and were doing so much work, and we were actually seeing how much they were helping these clinical trials progress, they were kind of on in a league of their own. And we loved reading their research. We loved reading their monthly updates. And so it was just a decision that Shane made actually, which was great. He just decided and text me, "Hey, I'm following one account on Maps on Insta. Check it out." And it's like, "Oh, okay, cool." And the feedback that we've gotten from our customer base has been so incredible. We get so many tearful, happy notes, and so many people that are like, "I didn't know what Maps was, now I do, and I donated, and I'm so happy that you've aligned with this cause." And everybody's just kind of struggling with mental health in one way or the other, or knows someone who's uh, been a victim of some trauma, and there's just not really a lot of options out there. Like I think we all kind of trust big pharma less and less every day, and it's just so encouraging that um, you know 3 psilocybin pills for 80 cents might help you with PTSD or anxiety, and there's no shortage of them. So it was just a really exciting thing to try to be a part of, and we've become really great partners with them. We do a couple events with them. We help each other. I've helped a few of them with some accounting issues. So it's been a really cool relationship.
I love that. And I love how you shared the response from your customers. And that even just the fact of your act of supporting maps is giving visibility to people who weren't aware of them before or the work that they're
Hmm.
doing before. And while the idea of psychedelic therapy is becoming more accepted, with MDMA going to stage 3 trials, et cetera, there's still taboo around it. And I think the
Hmm.
more that people can talk about their experience with it or the impact it has, the more that that taboo can be erased and it can be accepted into popular culture.
Yeah, I was just chatting with our head of editorial today. I One of my challenges is I'm very open, but I have like I'm higher in neuroticism, and so I like to share, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know if I should have shared that. And I wrote my article. I wrote an article on my experience with ketamine because same reason like we're following maps. Like there needs to be more eyeballs on this, and this is a potential option for a lot of people that might not know about it, that are
Mhm.
really desperate and don't want to become some sort of pharma zombies. So yeah, I think any chance we can to talk about these types of things that are personal, or maybe we're a little bit guarded about, I think it's an opportunity to kind of align and show everybody that we're all human and working through things. And I hope it comes through as a form of courage for other people. It's so important to have people that you can just talk to about things
Mhm.
and not keep them in. So I'm hoping that part of my legacy is that we removed a lot of stigma from this arena, and we did what we could, and we helped each other out.
I love that. And I think also in sharing stories, um, there is hope for people who haven't found something that's worked for them,
Hmm.
whether it's in handling anxiety or depression or PTSD or processing other types of trauma. And so understanding that there's this other path that might be beneficial is huge, and it's a gift. And I honestly think we'll be look back on this time where psychedelics were not only not accessible but illegal as cruel and unusual punishment, to
Yeah.
say there are all of these issues that humans were dealing with, that there was something that was very effective that we kept from them. And so I can't wait until that changes.
Yeah. I mean, not even just kept from them, made it, scheduled it as a Schedule One
Mm-hmm,
narcotic, and
mm-hmm,
classified it as that under a completely erroneous misconception. Like it's a Schedule One narcotic, supposed to have no medicinal value and be addictive, and those psilocybin is certainly has medicinal value, and it is not addictive. And so
mm-hmm.
it's, yeah, got a lot of changes to do.
Absolutely. Now, going back to Mudwater, we mentioned a couple of the employee policies you have in place, but there's a few more I want to call out because I do think it's
Mhm.
pretty special that the culture that you have been creating intentionally. So, all employees can work remotely.
Mhm.
There's 200 monthly wellness budget, profit sharing, wellness bonuses, donation on employees' behalfs, team trips, solo trips, 500 a month in childcare benefits, quarterly digital detox, which I want to hear more about what that is,
Mhm.
unlimited vacation every other Friday off. Can you share a bit more about, as you've put these policies in place, the impact you've seen on the company culture, or coming at it from a different lens, how you've seen people be able to show up at work differently?
Yeah. So last week was a really cool um, day, because we're onboarding a new project manager, and we're so excited to have her. And she asked one of our employees, like, "Hey, is this company real, or is this all bullshit?" And these perks and everything. And you know, one of our team members was like, "No, it's real. This is really how it is." And I'm sharing that because we put these things in place, but we're so closely tied to whatever it is in front of our faces that we're working on, that sometimes I don't really know if these are actually working. And we're still like an early company. We're just barely kind of 3 years old. So, and when you have these like changes that you feel like you need to make, it's, you kind of want to feel like, you kind of want to know if they're working, and that's hard to
Mm-hmm.
get. So I would say that's probably the best testimonial I've heard to kind of speak to the kind of the efficacy of it. Um, in terms of like the monthly wellness budget and um, the quarterly detox, like these are the monthly wellness budget was just a wild success from the beginning, where we gave everybody their own ramp card, and they can buy their their whatever it is that they want for that month. I used mine to buy. I used a firm and my ramp card to buy an 8 sleep. So I have an 8 sleep over my bed. So every month, my wellness budget goes to that. A lot of other people use it for yoga, or they buy like a kettlebell or something like that. And it's just kind of created this mentality within the company that physical health is a part of our culture. In other words, like, we do think it matters that you are active, and we are going to support that. And I think that's kind of like a 0 to 1 thing for a culture. You kind of explained the culture in a way that is, this is so important that we're giving you a budget, and so you should use it. When you have teammates using it, everybody kind of uses it. And so that's so impactful for just a healthy culture. When everybody's showing up and they've worked out, or they're in a good spot, they're great to be around. They do great work. And in terms of like the digital detox thing, yeah, this is something that's like front and center for me and Bex, who helps with HR. Like, we're figuring out how we absolutely make sure that people do this, because we've had it as a perk for a while, but um, nobody's taking it, or the people that take it are not, they're, they're taking a vacation and not and calling it a digital detox. So we do want to do better at like making sure that that's being adhered to. But it's to the point earlier, like even if you give perks like this, people still don't take you up on it. And so there's a very interesting data point there with why that really is. So again, and these are things that we're going to get better at and be better administrators of, but we didn't have really a playbook to copy. We couldn't find other companies doing this. So we're learning as we go on some of these.
I love how you're intentionally following up on, it's one thing to put a policy in place, but again, how are people using it? Are they using it?
Mhm.
What's their relationship to it? And so I think it's really great that you're creating a feedback loop and checking in and making adjustments based on if something's being used or not. Um, I think that's really awesome and something that other companies could learn from.
Yeah, we implemented some KPIs at the company that are around like employee pulse, which is like what's our average sleep score? How are people feeling on an average? What is and some other KPIs that we track, but we will add things like this to that KPI. It's like, or that KPI sheet for this people element of our business. As I mean, what gets measured gets what gets measured gets improved. So if it is something that you do want to improve, then you absolutely have to measure it. And again, we're in our own kind of area with like, well, we don't have anybody to copy on this. We have to figure this out as we go. But it is something you have to measure, or it's just not going to be improved.
Absolutely. And taking a moment just to call out something you mentioned, sleep score. For
Mhm.
people who don't know that, it might come from other things, but it does come from the Aura Ring, which
Mhm.
tracks sleep, it tracks heart rate variability, and a couple other health indicators really well. So,
Mhm.
especially for people who want to see how caffeine affects them and affects their sleep, it can give a lot of really great personalized data on that, or anything else, what they're eating, what they're drinking, changing variables to see how that actually impacts how rested you are every day.
Yeah, it's that quantified self element of, I think, a great version of yourself, or a version of yourself that's conscious of like what decisions that you're making during the day and how they affect your sleep. uh Aura Ring is incredible. Or if you have we like Aura Rings, we've tried that versus Whoop Band and some other things, but Whoop Band's great too, or Sleep Aid. But anything you're using to um, track sleep, I would say is um, kind of like a 0 to 1 or game changer if you're not doing it before, because you don't realize the variability, you don't realize the sensitivity of the things that you do eat, your day, how you set it up when you work out, until you actually start tracking sleep. That's where it all shows up. My I can tell that if I have 2 glasses of wine, I'll sleep okay. If I have a third glass of wine, my sleep score will go from like on an average of like 85 down to like a 60 without fail. And I would have never kind of been in that uh, curiosity zone if we didn't like issue these types of things to our team and to our employees, and have this as we wanted to learn ourselves too, so we thought it was cool, so we should start tracking it. So that's why we did it.
I love that. um, Now, taking a step back, I believe you've started a few companies before this that were all like SaaS based, so technology based more so. Is that correct? So
Yeah,
as
so
you,
there, go ahead.
yeah. So as you were starting to create Mudwater, how did you go about setting up your supply chain? Because that's very different.
Yeah, this is a will be a short answer. Like, I supply chain was something that I thought, I'm new to CPG, so I I love Excel though, and I was like, okay, I'll figure all this out, and I kind of had to, but it quickly became overwhelming. I kind of got it from a spot where um, we had been mixing this ourselves in our own in a commercial kitchen, and I was doing accounting at night, and we were at that phase where like we don't know if we're going to make it, and what do we even have here, and so I was. You don't really think to organize or kind of like formalize a process there, and it got to a point where it was like, oh my gosh, this whole inventory element is just crazy. Like, how do you track this and do anything else? And that's when we met Emma Nelson. So she came really highly recommended to us from a potential investor, and we started her as a contractor. And she's just one of those personality types. It's so meticulous, so awesome to work with, so sharp. And she came in, and it was just like overnight. It was like that was 2.5 years ago, and we've literally not had to add anybody else in supply chain full time until recently. She's such a talent. And so the question's like more along the lines of like, or the answer is more along the lines of like, what's it like when you work with really incredible people? They can do like 3 jobs, and they make it look easy. And so my answer there is we hired an incredible person, and she just had a lot of great experience and was great to work with, and picked it up without really any guidance from me. And just she's been with us for 2.5 years, and yeah, we just raised our Series A, and we're at a $138 million valuation. She's the only one there.
Congrats.
Yeah,
That's incredible. And what a
thank you.
find as far as a talent goes.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's just so fun to work with. And another great thing about Emma is that she's excellent at giving me really tough feedback and it not feeling personal. And I think that's such a skill set. Like, if you can deliver really good feedback to somebody that's, you know, probably tough to hear, but in a kind way, it's like a superpower. And she's just really outstanding at that.
That's incredible. That is a superpower.
Yeah. Yeah. She's great. She's the best.
Um, Now, in your supply chain with Emma's skill there, were there third-party certifications you relied on in looking for suppliers?
Yeah. When you're looking at ingredients, like you need the GRAS certification, generally recognized as safe. So that's kind of like there's no FDA approval we needed for food, but you do need the GRAS certification for all your ingredients. And so, those were tough to chase down for a few suppliers, but those are the main certs that we looked for.
Mhm. So you mentioned something a little bit I would love to dive in a little bit more on. So Mudwater doesn't go through typical FDA or USDA certification process. Why is that? And how do you ensure safety and quality standards outside of that process?
Yeah, so well, we don't have to as a food. It's usually for drug, and FDA is like a part, or they kind of oversee elements of that process, but they don't like regulate it. And so we didn't have to is the first answer. But how we kind of ensure the quality is we have like incredible protocols. We have very thorough inspection. It happens at both the co-packer and when we procure the ingredients. And so that kind of uh, attention to detail throughout that whole process is exactly how we ensure that the food safety meets our standards. So it's not so much like there's one thing; it's that every little thing that we do adds up. And so it's more or less like the overall process that we rely on, not so much like a single point in that process that we get the most value from.
That's great. Now, so you mainly sell directly to consumers off of your website. How do you approach or think about minimizing packaging and shipping waste?
The first thing we did was kind of said, can we have a supply chain that has no single-use plastic? And that was really hard, but we got there. And so that's a big celebration for us. We're
That's
really excited.
incredible.
that we got there. Yeah. And then in terms of like other things that we're doing, so we we partner with a company called Pachama, where we give them all of our data and our intel, and they offset our carbon footprint in our supply chain by donating to, whether it's a South American rainforest or another organization. We've chosen a South American rainforest. So we're doing that to kind of offset things. In terms of minimizing waste, we're constantly looking at ways to do the compostable thing, do the recyclable thing. And there's unfortunately like not a lot of innovation in this type of packaging. And if I was starting another company, I might think through like a solution to a lot of these companies that are looking for the same things that we're looking for. While I think we do a good job, we're still not really even close to where we want to get to. But the other things that we've done is we've moved to compostable bags. We're moving to refillable compostable bags for all of our mud customers, which is exciting. And so it's kind of like we started with plastic, and then we went to carbon offsets. Then we looked at refillables and compostable, but we'll never be kind of satisfied. I think it's just something you always have to try to minimize, and it helps with costs too, right? If weight's going down, you can reduce something, then shipping costs go down. So you're positively incentivized to constantly be looking for where you shave off weight or excess.
I love that. And just to call out with when you were talking about wishing that there was some other companies creating solutions for companies like yours, I think that that's a really important thing to mention because there's so much business opportunity. I think a lot of companies are looking for how do we do better when it comes to shipping, when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to packaging. And so there's a huge opportunity for innovation within those spaces and a lot of, I think, willing and able customers.
Yeah. We have a bunch of other CPG friends, and when we get together, sometimes it's like, why is this so hard? Like, we want to do the right thing. Why is there so little innovation here? And so, yeah, I'm excited. I hope that we can figure this out domestically. That would be just really exciting for us, but it's a challenge.
Hmm. Now we're getting to the end of the podcast. I'm wondering if there's anything we didn't cover that you want to mention.
I think that I like to help a lot of entrepreneurs. If anyone listening that's an entrepreneur and I can help them with anything, like, they can just reach out to me. Um, what I try to tell a lot of entrepreneurs is how important product market fit is. I'm very excited that we get to do the things that we do for our team, and I but we wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have product market fit. And it's like I think it's Mark Andreessen quote that says, even like product market fit will pull even a shitty team through to success. Like, that's how powerful it is. And I would say if you're thinking about starting your own thing, um, and you think you have product market fit, you probably don't. Like, product market fit feels like the market's pulling you by two fingers, like they have them in your nose and they're pulling you towards them. And we kind of saw that really early on. It's why I told Shane I'm going to donate my savings to starting this with you and going for it. And that's it can be difficult to do, but I think what's more difficult is scaling when you don't have product market fit. And so if you are thinking about starting your own thing, you should definitely do it, but you should make sure that you have product market fit before you think that you need to start scaling. And yeah, I think that's really important for a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs.
That's such good advice. And it goes back to, the marketing push versus pull. And if there's product market fit, there's going to be pull from consumers wanting whatever it is that you have, which means you're floating downstream versus trying to swim upstream. So there's a very big difference as far as the amount of
Hmm.
energy and how far you'll ultimately be able to go,
Yeah.
which is where
And
that skill piece comes.
I if one last thing that I think I would it's also really important is that entrepreneurship is really overwhelming sometimes, and there's a lot of anxious moments with it, and a lot of self doubt. And it's same thing with and why that's important in relation to product market fit is think of yourself not as like my identity is tied to the outcome of this company. Just think of yourself as like a scientist or a tester. You're just testing. You're just testing. Your
Mm,
identity is not tied to this. You're testing to see if you have product fit, and then you're on to the next test. And if that doesn't work, you're on to the next test. We this tendency of like tying our identities to these outcomes, and they'll slow us down and make us bummed when they don't work. And the majority of the time, tests like don't work. You have to keep
mm.
going. And so that's another important point that I hope people can take away.
That's great. I love that. Now, where can people follow you, find out more about Mudwater, what you're doing?
Well, our site is Mudwater, MUDWTR. You can try a starter pack there. We're Drink Mudwater on Instagram, and if I can help anybody, just Paul at Mudwater MUDWTR over email.
Awesome. And I'll include links to all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time today. This was such a great
Yeah,
conversation.
you're welcome. Thank you.